The first thing I want to talk about is speed is not a substitute for musicality. It's simply a tool. But many people, especially in the early years of their musicianship, tend to put some limits. I've had students that just shirk back when they hear a fast tempo. And most people don't know what their threshold is of how fast they can move their fingers. So they draw back and they don't ever push like an athlete. And there's an athletic component to being a musician, to equip yourself to be able to play whatever is needed at any tempo. So we're going to talk about how to get your fingers moving quickly, then we'll apply the musicality to it. The tracks that you're going to be playing over are all dance-oriented grooves, and the fastest default tempo is 110 beats per minute with a 16th note feel. So let's give this a listen. 1, 2, 3. So those are your quarter notes. And in this little lesson segment, we're going to talk about the bass line because I want to show you how to approach something that's already cooking pretty well. You may not even be able to play it today, but if it were... So you got to be able to play the bass line. That's a little project because if you can't play it today, that's good because I want you to be able to play it maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months from now at this tempo. The first thing you want to do is make sure you choose a tempo that you have success at, and we're going to talk about that. You also have this track at 2 other slower tempos where it's just bass and drums. Now I want to listen to the one that's at 80 beats per minute here. That's the one that's at 110, so let's listen to this one. Now it's slower, and you can hear the bass line because there's no chords going on in the back. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about how to deal with a chain. You're probably wondering, what does he mean, a chain? To me, when you play music, you have these events along a timeline. The event is you playing a note or dampening a note or moving your hands. So all these things occur in a strict timeline because you're playing against a groove. So each event, in this case, is going to be a note. I want you to look at example 1, and that is the bass line for the C minor, C Dorian, all the different jam tracks. The Phrygian's a little different, and I think maybe the Aeolian, maybe not. But let's talk about how you're going to approach if you said, I got to learn this bass line, have it down at some destination in time, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, even if you've only been playing a year or so. Here's how you tackle difficult, longer passages, because this thing is a full measure long. It's 16 notes long because it's 16th notes. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. They're all evenly spaced, so on this timeline, each link of the chain occurs at the same point. That makes it easy because you're not having to think about speeding up, slowing down, juggling different rhythms. To play this, you have to get your hand in one position, and anything you approach on the guitar that involves speed, but even if it doesn't involve speed, you want to look at efficiency and economy of motion. You try to get as many notes as possible, as many events that are going to occur in one section of the neck or in one hand position, and if you have to vary from there, it's not like you're jumping all over the place. I want to demonstrate bad technique. I'm going to do it slowly, and I want you to watch my fretting fingers. I'm flying all over the place. Now watch. Notice how I'm not moving as much. That's the first rule. You want to touch as many notes as possible that you're going to play. So let's put your hand in 7th position. If you don't know what that means, it means your first finger's in the 7th fret, and each finger is its own respective fret. So you got 4 frets, 6 strings, 24 notes available. This is just traditional strict playing, and we're going to be using this quite a bit in this course and some other courses. So if I'm in 7th position, I have a B, which is the lowest available note. What am I going to do for this B flat in the tab? That's the 6th fret of the 6th string. Now, how closely did you watch? You probably watched my fingers. This time, watch my shoulder. You see me drop my shoulder? Yeah, I can stretch back like that, but it creates tension in my hand. You don't want tension. A little sidebar. We're going to do a little exercise. Now, I do this with my students, and I shake hands with them. And I say, okay, put your hand in mine, and that is 1 on our scale of 1 to 10. Then I tell them, squeeze as hard as you can. So they grip really hard, and I respond. That's 10. Then I say, go to 7, go to 6, go to 2. And it's amazing how they've never pondered this issue of varying degrees of muscular exertion. If you don't have someone to shake hands with, simply do it maybe this way. Just grab your hands, pull them apart, and then let them fall together. Or do this, put your fingers together, push, relax, push, and relax. And take note of what happens with the muscles in your forearm and everywhere else. So on this little exercise involving muscular exertion, when you play this, if you don't drop your shoulder just a little bit, you're probably going to create some tension in your hand. You want to get rid of as much of that as possible. I'm holding the guitar classical style, I always do. And if I'm using a strap, I actually have a strap button back here, so it'll hang more in a classical posture. There are a lot of reasons for that, and I'll talk about that later on. But let's get your hand in position for the lowest 3 notes of this riff. And actually, it's just the C and the B flat. You can be playing with your second and your first finger. So put all 4 fingers on the 7th fret, and your first finger will be on its side. You may already know all this, but if you don't, and you wonder, how do people get those big stretches? It's the index finger, because it's not the little finger. So now I've got them all on the 6th string. Then I'm going to take my 4th finger, and I'm going to put it over on the G on the 5th string, because it's going to be one of the higher notes that I have to play. Then I also have to play this C over here. Then I also have to play this B flat. So what I'm doing is I'm going to touch as many of the notes, and if you don't read music, you can just look at the tab and say, okay, I've got my index finger. It's going to be on that 6th fret of the 6th string. My 2nd finger is going to take care of the 8th fret of the 6th string. My 4th finger is going to take care of the 10th fret of the 5th string. My 1st finger is going to take care, and so on. So get your hand in a position where you have access. That's the important concept. Where you have access to all the notes for this bass line without having to jump around. Then you want to practice doing this. Let's take the first 2 links of the chain, which actually end up being repeated. It's the... Notice you have a B flat and a C, and you're going to play them 3 times in a row. Throughout this course, we're going to deal primarily with left-hand legato, meaning slurs, hammer-ons, pull-offs, legato slides, things like that. I'm a big advocate of getting your left hand up to its full speed, and when you're resting it on the high-speed endurance exercises, then you can start working on your right hand in terms of a drummer, where you practice different rudiments, and you work for speed with tremolo and things like that. Then you put them together, and you do it with single-string studies, get a good handle on those, and you start moving with 2-string studies and so on. And it's a great way to get going pretty quickly and to synchronize your hands together. So on this, let's not even worry about picking yet. Later on, we'll deal with it. What you want to do is pick the first note, though. We have some options. You could pick the first note, hammer, pull. Tell me what's wrong with this. You hear all those other notes? My first finger has to dampen strings 5 through 1. So I got a lot of gain going on here. So the first 2 links of the chain that you're going to work on is that. If you have a drum machine or a metronome, set it for your quarter note or your 8th note, whichever way you want to think about it. Ba-da, ba-da. And when I get going really fast, I don't hold the first finger down. It relaxes because it's less muscular tension. But if I'm doing, that's if I'm picking, hammering, pick, hammer. Can you see my first finger? And this is critical. I cannot overemphasize the importance of rhythmic accuracy. Each note should be the same duration. On this timeline, you have an event, you have another event. Those are a quarter of a beat apart. They're 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E da 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 da. Just like a drummer going. And I'm demonstrating going from slow to fast, and in drum terms, that's open to closed, like with a roll or with the rudiments. Make sure you can work with any tempo. So let's just see if I can play that against the groove here. Now remember, it doesn't happen all the time, so this helps you learn the bass line. You're going to play 6 of them, and then you're going to wait until it comes back around the next measure. 2, 3, 4. What was wrong with that? I didn't get in the groove. 1, 2. These are my quarter notes. Make sure you, before you play, you listen. Now subdivide. 1 and 2 and 3. Now 16th. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. So that's what I'll be playing. See how I'm just working on the first 6 events in our chain. The next thing I do is I add the next link of the chain. And so on. And you just keep adding the events the lengths of the chain until you have the whole bass line down. And it's a great way to practice because you're building. It's like you're building this foundation on the first floor and the second floor, so make sure you don't try to do the second floor when you haven't got your foundation and your first floor solid. There are a lot of different ways you can play this in terms of where you insert slurs, those being hammer-ons and pull-offs. I can pick, hammer, pick, or I could go. I could do that if I want to, but I like having the downbeat of the ands, actually, in the eighth notes. 1 E and a 2. So I've got a pick right there. Well, you better prepare yourself for high speed, so you're going to pick down on the fifth string and up on the sixth string. Watch my right hand very slowly. Down, 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 up. And I inserted that slur there. Now that part you could use pull-offs. Well, right away, that throws something else into the mix, just keeping those slurs, those pull-offs, even in time. I just played a pull-off and did it 3 different levels of volume. First one was like a ghost pull-off. It wasn't clean. I just sort of lifted my finger up. Second one, you could pull real hard, and that means that you're tensing those fingers up, the DIP joints. So you'll probably need to work on those, the last 4 notes of the bass. There it is, all picked. You'll use strict alternate picking if you start working on your alternate picking on this. I mean, it's the only way you're going to play it up to speed. All right, so I've covered how you're going to get this bass line down in 5 minutes. No, in half an hour. Maybe in 2 days. Who cares when you get it down? I want you to work on this bass line so that at some point you can ring me up and say, yeah, Brad, I can play the bass line along with the fast tempo, the 110 beats per minute, and I can practice it with slurs inserted according to what I like, but I can also pick everything. That's a great little project that is attainable.